evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Good day, Meticulous Moments audience. It's always so lovely to spend time with you. Here at Meticulous Moments, we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Kyle Gillette. A little bit more about Kyle. Kyle provides engaging stories and tactical information that you and your listeners can immediately apply to your life and businesses. He's been a guest on dozens of shows and understands the importance of making a podcast flow well. As an experienced business and mindset coach, Kyle's 15 years of coaching, running various businesses, and his experience as an author gives you plenty to talk about. Additionally, Kyle has had 3 near-death experiences that have given him a unique perspective on life. Kyle provides insights that will make your audience think and help them get something from your episode, guaranteed. He can do interviews that take 15 minutes or 50 minutes and everything in between. Expect Kyle to be open, real, and share practical tips about mindsets, goals, habits, and much more that can be used by your listeners. Let me tell you, this was just one phenomenal interview indeed. Let us read Kyle's bio. Kyle Gillette has helped small business owners and leaders around the world to take their business from good to great. He is an ICF certified coach, behavioral analyst, and creator of the Sage Mindset framework that helps leaders and small business owners become the leaders they are meant to be. As a mindset coach, helping clients understand how their thoughts affect their lives and businesses, Kyle understands what it takes for someone's mindset to change. SAGE is an acronym for the following: self-awareness, accountability, growth, and empowerment. He focuses on helping his clients build a foundation of self-awareness in their life and business, create exceptional accountability to achieve big goals, dreams, and results with a growth mindset that empowers others to do, have, and be more than they ever thought possible. He's the host of the Sage Mindset podcast, developer of the Sage Leadership Framework, the Sage Mindset app, and the owner of Sage Mindset Coaching, a coaching and consulting organization. It is so phenomenal to spend time with an individual of this caliber. Let me tell you, when we had our interview, Kyle spoke straight to my heart, and I really appreciate the fact that he took the time to come and impact the Meticulous Moments audience. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this enlivening interview. And with that, we welcome our guest, Kyle Gillette. Good evening, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for being with us again this evening, joining us for a new session. And this evening, we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Kyle Gillette. Welcome, Kyle. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. As I was opening this session, I thought to myself, I never asked you how to pronounce your surname. Did I pronounce it the right way?
You did. So it's Gillette, just like the razor. So it's pretty simple. No relation, but it is Gillette. Yep, you got it.
I love it. I love it. Thank goodness. Thank goodness for that. Now, I know you. We've been on a Zoom before. We've chatted on Messenger. We've chatted on email. And I know you. And I just want to ask you, for those in the audience that are not acquainted with you yet, will you please just introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Kyle Gillette, as we all know the last name. And I am a coach and a author, and I work with business owners in kind of smallish businesses, 5 to 25 people that are looking to get the overwhelm out of their business and out of their life so they can have a lot more control of their time and also do a lot better job taking care of their people, keep that door closed from people exiting. Way too many people are leaving businesses. And I like to say that a lot of times clients are running a job instead of running a business. And if you run a job, your job or your business is going to run your life. But we want to do it the other way. We want your business to help you facilitate the life that you want. And so my job is to help people do that through mindsets and habits and through systems and processes.
Beautiful. So in essence, I understand that you empower people, you change their perspective. In a sense, I can say you flip the script because they're no longer slaves to their jobs. It becomes their passion, and thus it doesn't really feel to them as if they are working. And I mean, what a blissful place to be.
100%. Yep. And we all go through moments, right? Even if we're really good at maintaining that good mindset and habits and whatnot, we go through moments where the business is a job and it's kind of grinding. But when you get to the sage mindset or the sage leadership level, your business is really empowering amazing things in your life, and it gives you so much freedom to run the business the way you want to, and to lead the people that you're employing the way that you want to. And now you actually got to the point to which you started your business for in the first place. Because I don't know anybody that started their business going, I want to grind for 80 hours a week for 7 years. Nobody started their business like that. That's not what they wanted. And when you deploy the sage leadership mindsets and habits, it shifts things, it changes things.
Beautiful. I love that. Absolutely love that. You've been coaching and running businesses for 15 years. Please tell us the origin story of this journey, because I mean, 15 years is a long time. I'm sure you've learned so much and you've given so much to the people that you've had contact with.
Yeah, well, my first 9 years of coaching was in a men's mentoring program. And I got introduced to that program through a very interesting circumstance. I had gone on a trip to India, and one of the guys on the trip there, his name was John, and he lived in the same area I lived in. And so when we returned, I was getting ready to wrap up college, and I was a mess. Like I like to say, I was a dumpster fire, and it was just awful. I was 30 pounds overweight. I was actually covered in poison oak from head to toe because I had gone off trail with some friends. And so I was covered in poison oak. I think it was like 9 units behind in college, and I had 1 quarter to go. And I was terrified of life because I was going, I'm going to be done with college, and now I've got to go figure it out. And fortunately, God was looking out for me. And so was this friend of mine. He called me up and he said, hey, Kyle, I've got a job opportunity for you that you might be interested in. And he told me about it. And it was that men's mentoring program. So I said, sure, I'll go. And so I went to the interview and drove onto the property, beautiful 20-acre setting with rolling green hills. And there was two pet areas because the way the program ran, we had dogs, and those dogs helped support the program. And I remember walking up to the farmhouse door, knocking on it, and then Jack, the president, opened the door and welcomed me in. I sat down. Hour and a half later, the 2 gentlemen interviewing me said, hey, do you want the job? So I'm going, I went from just several weeks ago, not having a clue of what job I was going to have, being 30 pounds overweight, feeling completely lost in life, to now I'm going to be living in this facility with 3 to 6 dudes, helping them get their lives on track. And and the voice in my head says, you're an imposter. You're a hypocrite. You don't have this figured out, right?
It happens to all of us.
Yeah. And I didn't have it figured out, but I had a heart for what they were doing. And so I said yes and moved in. And for the next 9 years, I lived there for 1 year. And then the next 8 years after that, I was a part of the program, helping in varying capacities. worked there full time. And I was mentored the whole time for 9 years by the president of the program, who had run 30 businesses successfully and had become a multimillionaire and then retired in his early 50s so he could do this program. And so I got every Tuesday at lunch, I was mentored for an hour and a half by this guy. And so that was my mentorship. And then I passed that on into the coaching of the guys, and then obviously did other training and learning in the process. So that's a small nutshell of the very, very beginnings of my journey to where I am now.
And I mean, from there, I can just know and say and put it out there. You've never looked back.
Yep. For
when
sure.
When you look back, you reminisce and say, this is where it all started. I used to work at a church when I was young into the ministry, just new, fresh pastor. I used to write on a big blackboard outside the church. I used to write, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And people just love that phrase. I have no idea whose phrase it is, but they really relished in that, knowing that we all figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, if we're honest, that's reality. It's just, I don't know, in 6 months from now, I don't know what's going to be happening in my business exactly. And I know I'm going to be challenged more in 6 months from now than I am today. I have to be, because that's where I want to go. I want to go to a next level, and I have a big vision, and God's moving in it. And is it scary? Yeah. But if you're not feeling like an imposter a little bit, then you're not stretching yourself enough. And if you're not stretching yourself enough, then your faith isn't in play enough. And if your faith isn't in play, then God's like looking and going, what are you doing, man? I want to do something big. Let me stretch you. Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Kyle, get with the program.
Yes, exactly. Totally.
Yeah. I love the way you articulate that, and God speaks to me in pictures, and you were talking about, scaling businesses and helping people, and for us just to follow the voice of the Lord. And I thought to myself, we don't only scale our business when we challenge ourselves and we go through these transformational times, we are also scaling our spiritual lives and our emotional intelligence. And that's the part of the adventure that I love, is to challenge myself. I love a good challenge. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, right in the center of my framework is growth. And so SAGE is actually an acronym that stands for self-awareness, accountability, growth, and empowerment. And I like to describe SAGE as a leadership house. When you're a SAGE leader, you're building a leadership house, and the foundation of that leadership is self-awareness. Without self-awareness, it's almost impossible to lead well. And then accountability is the nails that holds that leadership house together. Without accountability, that leadership house is going to crumble. It's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt those that you lead as well. But growth is the walls and the roof. And as leaders, we need to be stretched and have that growth mindset and adjust the way we do things within our leadership house, and also potentially put an addition onto it, because we have more opportunity to influence. We have more opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, and to blow the roof off the leadership. Stretch yourself so much that you're changing the tiles on that roof because you've blown it off and you've got a whole new level. And then finally, yeah, exactly. And empowerment is the windows and doors. And so this is where people see into your leadership and they step into your leadership. And then also some people actually see out and they see opportunities for themselves and they leave your leadership, but you empower both those coming in and those leaving to be the leaders they're meant to be. And that's ultimately what a SAGE leader is. It's that leadership house and those 4 pillars to it. And I've found repeatedly that that's what the great leaders are, is those 4 pillars, and they get it, they do it, and they act on those particulars.
Amazing. I'm thinking now, as you were speaking about leadership and going to the new level and SAGE and the concept of SAGE, it's absolutely fantastic. And you are absolutely and amazingly a perfect fit for the Meticulous Moments podcast, because we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And Dennis LaRue that introduced us to each other, he was also on my podcast. And I have to tell you, he knows what he's doing, because he knew you would fit right in here and you would add so much value. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you to Dennis for sure. Well, he actually was on my podcast like 2 or 3 years ago. And I just randomly connected with him, I think through somebody else. I don't even know who that person was. But what's awesome is obviously he connected us, but he also connected me to my editor and publisher. And this editor and publisher has done amazing things for me in the book and the Sage Leadership and everything that's coming with that. And it's just, I love how those moments, God is meticulously doing something in my life and in somebody else's life that I have no clue that this conversation on my podcast with Dennis would lead to this one with you, and then everything in between with the stuff with my editor. It's really incredible. But taking that moment to have that conversation and be really intentional about it made the difference. And he was intentional with you and me by connecting us. And that, man, that's amazing.
Absolutely, I agree with you. God works in mysterious ways, and I'm thankful. I'm really thankful to him for that.
Totally, 100%.
So you're an ICF. I'm not sure what that is. You are going to explain that to me. An ICF certified coach, a behavioral analyst, and a creator of the Sage mindset. So you've given us the Sage mindset, the framework. Would you care to elaborate on the ICF coaching, which I find very interesting, and the behavioral analysis that you do?
Yeah, so ICF stands for International Coaching Federation, and it's they say they are the gold standard for coaching certification or coaching credentialing. And there's 3 different levels of coaching credentials that you can get through them. And the way I like to talk about it is the first level is like getting associates in coaching. The second level is like getting a BS/masters in coaching. And then the third level is like getting a master's/doctorate in coaching, because it's a very, very challenging process to move through the levels. And right now I'm right in the middle of level 2. Which requires a ton of hours of coaching, a ton of hours of training. Yeah. But the reason that it's a big deal is because in the coaching industry, excuse me, there's a lot of frauds that they claim to be coaches, and they're not. They're just telling people what to do, which if their client is okay with that, that's fine, whatever. But what ICF does is they try to create a standard of this is what coaching truly is. And it's asking deep and powerful questions, listening deeply and listening well, and coaching the person, not the problem, and not telling people what to do, but eliciting the answers out of the person. So when I'm working with my clients, that's how I approach it. And it's amazing the difference that makes versus me telling you what to do. If I'm asking you questions and drawing it out of you, you're way more likely to do it than if I said, hey, why don't you do ABC? You may resist that and then only do A partially. And so the coaching approach is significantly better for what I'm trying to do with my clients. Not that consulting is bad or counseling, none of that is bad. It's just what I'm trying to do, that work, that approach doesn't fit. So that's ICF. And then the
way you approach it, very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the answer lies within you. Whatever problem you're dealing with the answer lies within you. Now, I can help facilitate finding that answer or give you a hint or a tip of something that I thought of. But really, if you're going to act on whatever answer you come up with, that has to be on you. I can't make you act. That I can help you think, but I can't make you act. So with the Sage framework, my work is the mindsets and habits of the person. What are your mindsets and what needs to change about them according to you, not according to me, but what are your mindsets and what needs to be changed according to you? And then what are your habits and how do you need to adjust those to get what you want in life and in business? And it's a blast because no one client's the same. That's for sure.
Yes, and sometimes can I mention it maybe in this way? Let me phrase it in a professional manner. Sometimes I find that people are adults, but they still cling to worldviews that I would maybe come across in teenagers. And I feel like they've developed to a certain point emotionally, but thereafter they grew as adults, but they're still clinging to the world systems and the beliefs of younger individuals. And I think that's where you come in and you help people with that, because it's very difficult to work with people that are, for instance, in that frame of mind. I always tell the youth when I work with them, I know little children throw tantrums, and I've seen youth do it, and even, a little bit older as they go out of school. But I've actually seen grown-ups do that as well. And then, I'm thinking mindset, and I wonder if they have mind coaches or if they realize they need. Have you ever come across that in your coaching? What are some of the, and I didn't put that in the questions, but now that we're on the topic, did you meet people like that? How did you help them?
Yeah, yes. And we all have those moments, of course, but there's some that are more, that's their maturity level, and they're kind of stuck there. I have a client right now that in a certain area of his leadership, he's stuck there. And he uses a phrase that I confronted him about last week, and it's that pisses me off. Yeah. That's what he says. He says, that pisses me off. And then he starts to talk to the employee about that thing that pisses him off. And so I said to the client, we'll call him Joe, don't say that anymore. You can't say that anymore, because what happens is you shut them down. As soon as you say that pisses me off, they get defensive and they're shut down. They can't hear a word that you're saying. It doesn't sink in. Yeah. And that goes back to communication. And what happens in the homes often is there's some poor communication going on about what's going on with the kid, what you expect of the kid. And so then that carries forward into their professional life, because clear expectations were never established, which means boundaries weren't established very well, which also means accountability wasn't established very well. Mm-hmm. And when you find that in clients, we got to unwind that. I don't go back and do the counseling stuff, but we go, what's the mindset here? That people are just supposed to do what I say because that's what I said. Well, wait a second. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from the parent that told them that's how it works. Do it. Why? Because why? Because I'm your dad. Oh, well, that's not how it works with adults. You can't do that with adults.
Yeah.
So they have to modify the way they speak, because they can't tell the employee, do it because that's what I said. Instead, they'll say, do it. And then they don't, and then the employee doesn't do it. And then the immature leader says, well, that pisses me off when you don't do it. When they're really just saying, do it because I told you to. And it's not going to ever work that way in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And so you have to wrap it back around to clearly defining expectations, clearly communicating those expectations repeatedly. I have a habit in my book that I call the over communication habit, and it's part of empowering employees. And it's about over communicating your vision, your values, and the expectations of your employees. And if you don't do that, they're going to miss it. And then once you've over communicated it, then you have to hold them accountable to those expectations. And that's a whole nother path, and it's not the easiest path, but you got to do it if you want to get results and take advantage. Yeah. Take advantage of the moments.
I find your approach is very interesting. There's so many different people that I speak to, from different type of coaching. And I really have to say, I've spoken to NLP coaches, you're an ICF coach. I've spoken to John Maxwell coaches. There are a few other names, out there that are big, Les Brown, those people. But your approach is in a holistic manner, I'd say, which I think is very refreshing, because you help the person on different levels. You don't just see the problem and then address that little part. You look, how does it go across the spectrum of that individual in their individuality? Why do they believe what they believe, and how can you help them to better that? Now, you are an expert in leadership development, mindsets, habits, and you also work with small business owners. Tell us what you focus on in those areas when you conduct your training and your coaching.
Yeah. So what's funny, because I go to small business owners and they get referred to me typically, and they'll come to me with an employee problem, a productivity problem, or a communication problem, right? That those are the three things. And yes, we're going to address those things. We're going to deal with those things. But ultimately, behind all of that is they're not aware enough of themselves as a leader and the impact that they're having on those that they're leading. So their tone of voice, their body language, their own values, those things aren't clear enough in their own heart and minds. And so we can deal with the symptoms of they're feeling overwhelmed and overworked. And we can say, well, check your email only 3 times a day instead of every time it chirps at you, or do this or that tactic. But until you resolve the mindset problem or the habit problem, you're going to have tactical problems that are going to continue to occur. You're going to have the symptoms continue to occur. So yes, we address those, but I want them to be stepping away from my coaching, knowing how to be self-aware, knowing what mindsets they're really good at and what mindsets they're not good at in each of those 4 pillars of SAGE, and then taking those mindsets they're good at and launching into them hard, like getting really good at them. So if they have really strong conviction about their values, then I want them to lean into that even more so. If they have a high risk mindset to help them grow, I want them to lean into that more. But if they don't, I want them to find somebody that has that, to surround themselves with people that have that mindset, because no leader can embody all the mindsets of a great leader or all the habits. So part of it is knowing what you're great at and what you're not great at, and then figuring out who to delegate that off to when you're not so great at it. And realizing that the more I lean into what I'm great at, the better I'm going to be as a leader. There's a story that I talk about in the book that's a Nebraska school district in the 50s put together this program, reading program. And they put 6,000 sophomores through this speed reading program, and there was 2 groups really. One group read at 90 words per minute, and then the second group read at 300 words per minute. And both groups went through the same exact program, and at the end of the program they were tested again for their reading comprehension and their reading speed. The first group improved, so they started at 90 and they improved. What do you think they started reading words per minute? Jay, what do you think?
Well, I don't know what is the average normally. You said did you say 90?
That group's average was 90. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they started at 90 and then they improved to 150 words per minute.
Wow, that's a big.
Yeah. So they jumped 60-ish%, which is good, right? That's a good improvement. To give you a little bit of an idea of pace of reading, I measured myself and I'm around 250 to 300. So I'm not crazy fast by any means, but I'm not 90. 90 is a bit slow, really.
Yeah.
150 is okay. It'll get you through a book. A book is about 250 to 350 pages or words per page. Okay. The 300 word per minute group also improved. But here's the crazy thing. The 300 word per minute. They went from 300 to 2,900 words per minute. 2,900.
Goodness.
It's insane.
That's fast.
That is so freaking fast. That's like 10 pages a minute. It's just, it's crazy. And their comprehension stayed the same. Or improved.
I understood what they read.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. The reason I bring up that story, first of all, it's fascinating to me. But second of all, it's the reason that this group that already read fairly quickly improved so much was it was already a strength. And so they leaned into their strength and it multiplied. And when we do that in our leadership, and this is what I try to do with all my clients, is take whatever their strengths are in their leadership.
Yes, magnify that.
let's lean into it. Let's multiply it, and then take the things that you're not great at, because they're going to subtract from you if you focus on them. Because you're going to take time away from getting good at or great at the things you're good at when you focus on the weak things. Pass that on to other people if you can. And I know there's exceptions. I'm not stupid. I know that there's exceptions to this where there are some things that you're not great at that you're going to have to do as a business owner. But for the most part, figure out how to delegate those other things off. And this will open up creativity, innovation, and trust, and so many things with your employees, because they're doing the things they're great at. Just imagine an organization filled with people that are trying to do everything versus an organization filled with people that are only doing the things they're great at. Which one do you want to be a part of? Which one do you want to lead? Of course, it's the one that everyone's doing the things they're great at. So that's what I'm trying to do with my clients, is get to that place with them in their business and in their leadership.
That's wonderful. The concept is amazing. And you spoke about the speed of reading. When I was busy with my master's in theology, I had books. I mean, you'll know, the books are this thick. And there's not crazy. One, there's many. So I had to learn how to speed read and how to remember what I've read. And it's a process, but if you're good at reading, like you said from the onset, I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, there you go, and you just go faster and faster. And the trick, of course, there is to remember what you've read. Yes. So you're reading it, but you're also interpreting the message. So that is actually very, very great. That you know what you illustrated here, how they go from the 90 to the, was it 300?
Yeah, 90 to 150. Versus
90 to 150, that's a big leap. That's a big leap. Yeah, it's a healthy leap.
Yeah, and then the other group's going from 300 to 2,900, and that's just, but that's the leap that you can take in your leadership when you focus on the things that you're great at, and that's what I love to help facilitate. And a lot of that requires that you have accountability in place for yourself. You know, are you committed to letting go? A lot of accountability is actually letting go. It's rather than doing, it's letting go when it comes to leadership. And so, a lot of my work is helping people to get past that mindset of, I have to do everything. And these people aren't smart enough to do it, or these people piss me off and they're just in my way, right? That's what often happens. And maybe it's not articulated exactly like that, but it's acted.
The feeling in the vibe. Yeah.
Yep. So it's acted out that way. And then what does that do to you? Well, it creates stress and anxiety and messes up your home life. And I mean, how many marriages are broken up because of the work context? Because these people can't let go and let others. We're all guilty, darn it. So
I'm a big fan of delegation. I mean, I wouldn't get through my life if I had to be everything to everyone all the time. There was a joke in the ministry a few years ago. The one pastor said at the conference, you know, when you are so busy in the church and you want to do everything yourself, you are the bride at every wedding, you are the corpse at every funeral, and then you burn out. So delegation, very, very important. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. And you are raising a lot of interesting points, which is going to make the audience think about this conversation after it has taken place. Now, you've spoken about SAGE. I want to hear about the SAGE leadership book and the SAGE assessment. I would love for the audience to know more about that.
Yeah. So the SAGE leadership book was published on the 1st of November. So that was yesterday on the day we're recording here.
Congratulations. Well done.
Yeah. So we had a 30-day launch up to that point where I did some special books that I'm assigned and all that. But yesterday was the official launch, and I'm in the top 10 in 3 categories right now on Amazon. So that's super exciting. But the book is taking a ton of what I'm saying right now and much more, and it puts it all together into a process, into this. You work through the 5 mindsets in self-awareness and think about them. And I ask you questions to contemplate that, and you can journal about it. And then you work through 5 habits in self-awareness to really implement those mindsets. And then you do the same thing in all the other pillars. And through that, you're discovering what mindsets fit me, what mindsets do I really embody well, and which ones do my team embody. And then you empower your team to take on those mindsets and take on those habits. And it's very practical. So there's a tiny bit of theory, but it's mostly practical of, here's a story about how this mindset works, or here's an anecdote or a metaphor of how this works. Because my goal when I wrote it was, I want to teach people about the mindsets and habits, but I want it to stick. And what makes things stick? Story, anecdote, metaphor. So I wrote it in such a way that every single mindset or habit has story and metaphor or anecdotes tied to it, at least one, if not more. But they also have practical application tied to it as well. So you learn it, then you get reinforced through the imagery, and then you get it reinforced by acting on it through the questions or the practical teaching. And the goal of the book isn't for people to become have all the mindsets and habits. The goal of the book is for them to learn how to be a people first leader. The subtitle is a 4-part framework for becoming a people first leader. And as you learn these mindsets and habits, you're going to start to put people first more and more, because you're going to get out of the way more and more. And that is freeing for every business owner, because like I said from the beginning, does the job own you, or or does the business own you, or you own the business? And this book will help you own the business. And at the very end, I walk people through the last 2 chapters. One of them is 10 days. What do your first 10 days look like to be a sage leader? And then the last section is all about how I do it, because I get frustrated when I read a book and then the author doesn't tell you how they do it. And it just feels like they're telling you a bunch of stuff, but they've never actually done it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that to people. And I'm not saying you have to do it my way, but I wanted people to see that you can do a lot of the mindsets and habits in your day-to-day life. And so I walk people through my weekly and my daily routines to help them see an approach that they could take.
Gives them the freedom.
Yeah. So that's the book. And I'm very excited about it, because the vision I was given by God was to help people shift their mindsets and habits so that God can transform their hearts. That's the vision he gave me. And this book is a piece of that process. And I'm excited. I've already gotten several messages in the last couple of days from people that were pre-readers that are like, this book is great. It's helping me. It's made so much of a difference for me. And it's just like, it's amazing to hear that and to know that God is working on them, and that is the goal of my business. It is a marketplace ministry, and people are being impacted. So it's beautiful.
That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Only thing that lasts forever is relationships, and then our time in heaven.
I agree. Absolutely. So tell me, what are some of the habits people can adopt in order to facilitate peak performance? You mentioned peak performance. You gave us a wonderful layout. What habits can people adopt to be better?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you maybe 7. This depends how this goes. There's a set of habits in the accountability section of the book that I call the accountability pass. And it's 4 habits. And I'll give you kind of the short version of it here. But PASS is an acronym. I love acronyms. And so the book has a ton of them in it to help people remember things. But PASS stands for passive, active, structures, and self. And those 4 components form how to keep yourself accountable, not others, but yourself, because the beginning of the book is about you. And then the very last, the empowerment section is about others. So passive accountability is for you, Jay. What goals do you have? What's a big goal you have right now that you want to see accomplished in the next 90 days to 6 months or something?
Yeah. Well, the first one I can think of at the moment is that my goal is at the moment, and I've gone through a lot the last 2 months to get where I am now. My goal is to go to New Jersey and to conduct that speaking event, and then to travel a little bit for that month, and then go and train with the AMAA athlete. So that's a goal. That's the karateka. That's a goal that's upcoming within the first 90 days. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What is the reason behind pursuing that goal for you?
Yes, well, it's dual. It's going to promote I've been a pastor for 15 years, and I've done extensive public speaking, but I never promoted myself as a public speaker. So the January boot camp is a wonderful networking opportunity for my public speaking side of my business, and, just meeting the people that I work with. And then the martial arts, that is for my personal fulfillment. So the one is business and the one is personal. And the martial arts one is for me because I just love training, and I want to train in their dojos and learn, how they do it. So it's dual.
Okay, awesome. What is the heart behind why you speak?
Well, I have a story to tell, because people have they have a misconception about what ministry is. And I really feel people need to know really what goes on behind the scenes. And they need to know how we as pastors digest it, because not many people know this. And I mentioned it because I was on a podcast yesterday. People think, I don't know why, but they think pastors' lives are perfect. But they don't know what goes on behind the scenes. They forget that we are human. We go through trials and tribulations. We have a shock here and there. We also lose family members. Our marriages crumble. Everything that anyone else is exposed to, pastors are also exposed to. And yet, if you think about it, Kyle, when let's say a congregation member, let's say they have to stand in front of the throne of God one day, they'll stand there in their own capacity. But because of the weight that we have of the ministry on us, we'll stand in front of God, and we'll have to answer for ourselves and for every single person that we have under our wing. And that's what I want to bring. I want to bring perspective about my story and how it can help people, to treat each other better and to grow.
Okay, awesome. So you are so much proving my point here. I love it. If you can't see me, I was pumping my fist as Jay was talking about her heart here. The passive part of accountability that we're getting at here is, I wrote down simply, a pastor is human. They have a lot of burden that they're carrying because they're teaching and they're held to a higher standard, and they're not perfect. And that's the message you want to spread to the world. Passive accountability works in this way. You share that message, that the heart of it, not, hey, I want to go do martial arts and learn how to speak better. That's interesting, but there's not real heart behind it. There's not a real true narrative, beautiful story. That end part that you shared, that's a true, beautiful narrative story that makes sense and people can get behind it. So you share that with a ton of people, 10, 15, 20, 30 people. And what happens is they follow up with you. Some of them, not everyone by any means, but 3, 4, 5 people follow up with you and they say, hey, how did that trip go? What did you learn on that trip? And what did the people think about your message about pastors? Or they'll ask you, when is that trip coming up? What are you going to talk about on your trip? What do you plan to say? And that keeps you accountable to following through on that particular goal that you have. So that's passive accountability. The A in pass is active accountability. And what that is you take one person from those people that followed up with you on their own volition, and you say, hey, Susie, would it be all right if we met weekly or bi-weekly to set up accountability conversations about the goals you have and the goals that I have, and we'll talk to each other about it and call each other out when we don't take action? That's active accountability. Then structures are basically, the simplest way to put it is your calendar filled with scheduled events that you're going to do, like meetings and maybe blocking out time, and then your to-do list. Preferably a digital to-do list. And there's a lot of other structures, but those are 2 primary structures that you can put in place to help you make sure you follow through to achieve your goals. And then lastly, the second S is self accountability, which is going, I am going to commit to do this rather than decide to do this. Because there's a difference between deciding and committing. You can decide to skydive, but until the wind's hitting you on the face and your instructor pushes you out of the door, you're not really committed. And so commitment is about not looking back. In scripture, Jesus talks about don't put your hand to the plow and look back. In other words, don't put yourself into the work of the ministry and look back to the old life. Commit. You can't look back. And it's the same thing with us. We need whatever goal we have, we need to commit and not look back. And so those are 4 habits of accountability that help people shift the way they get things done. And there's a study behind this that I found that it jumps accountability up to 95, or it jumps the likelihood of accomplishing the goal up to 95% if you deploy these things and a couple other things. It's like mind-boggling how big of a difference they make. So there's a ton of things, but that's a little bit of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Now I wanted to say, I mean, you and I can talk for hours on this topic, and you are so knowledgeable about it. I love that. Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing it to the awareness of the audience. Now, we spoke about my goals, and you kind of pictured, as you were speaking, I saw what you were trying to articulate, and you did it so well. You're showing us these principles because you've been there, you've done that, and you have a special way of making it come together. Now, goals is a big thing. And I find that when people don't reach their goals, sometimes they feel that failure, and they start to feel as if they are the failure. How would you say can individuals attain 90% of their goals with the mastery and the coaching that you do?
Yeah, a lot of it is, it does start with that mindset of commitment. You got to be self-committed and accountable to taking the little actions. And one of the things that I'm deploying fairly soon, I have an app that's coming out. And do you have a favorite soccer team or a favorite sports team that you follow at all?
Well, recently I spoke to Emilio Roman, and I think he follows the Eagles or something like that. So I said to him, well, I'll have to now also follow that. I think it's, what is it? Not basketball. Is it football? Football?
Yeah.
Yes, football.
Football.
Let's say that's my team.
Okay, so the Eagles. So for any sport, there's what's called a box score, right? And you know what the score is, you know what quarter it is or what half it is, and you know who's on the field, or you just can immediately know what the heck is going on with the team and whether they're winning or losing very quickly. It's a glance. And you do that, or you know that because there's stats. There's data tracked on what's going on in that particular moment, in that particular team. The problem is people don't do that with themselves. We don't track stats on ourselves. We don't know what our score is for a particular mindset or a particular habit. And so I created an app that does that for us. Wow. Every day you log in, you give yourself a score of 1 to 5, and it's a rating of how satisfied you are with one particular mindset.
Yeah.
And then you journal about it, which works with the mind. So you gamify it with a score. Then you work with your mind on what happened with that habit by answering the prompt. And you do that for one mindset or habit in each of the 4 pillars. And so you start to work through those mindsets and habits that are in the book. And this is what is really helpful. So because you then can see objective information on yourself. It's really hard to get objective information on yourself because you're in your own head. Yeah. And so if you've got the numbers, then now it's objective. And you can look at them and go, wow, for the last 4 weeks, I've been scoring a 2 out of 5 on my mindset of priorities. Yeah. There's something wrong here. There's something broken here. Let me look at my journal entries and review what I was saying, and let me make some shifts. Then 3 weeks pass, you look back again, and you're like, wow, for the last 21 days, I've been scoring an average of about a 4 in these last 21 days. what's happening. You look back at your journals, you're like, wow, that's what's going on. This is what I've shifted. This is what I've changed. And so you have objective data on yourself that helps you to know where you are. So that's the personal side. And then on the professional side, most business owners don't know their numbers. I've found that repeatedly with clients, and shockingly, they don't even know their P&Ls. I'm like, how do you not know your profit and loss statement? But when I say numbers, I'm talking even more nuanced. Like, how many phone calls does it take to make a sale? How many times do you have to put out information to your customers to get them to come in again? That type of nuanced data, because that's the data that's going to set you free. Let me tell you a quick story. So can I tell you a quick story?
Of course, I'm all ears. I'm enjoying this so much. I knew it was going to be this interesting.
Okay. So back in the men's mentoring program, Jack was the president, and he was meticulous, very meticulous about what we were going to do, and very intentional about what he was going to do, or what we were going to do. And the director of the program I was getting frustrated. I'm like, Christian, how come Jack never does the things that I want us to do? How come he never follows through on these things? I tell him these things and I think they're great ideas and he doesn't do anything. And he looks at me and he says, Kyle, I've been working with Jack for 13 years. Let me tell you a secret. I go, okay, I'm all ears. I'm pumped. And he's like, facts and figures will set you free. I'm like, what? And I've taken that mantra and I realized that it's true. It's true for us personally, and it's true for us in business. The more you know your facts and figures, in other words, your data in your business, the more it's going to set you free. Because if you're overwhelmed right now in your business, why are you overwhelmed? Well, if you don't know your data, you cannot figure out why you're overwhelmed. You cannot figure out why things aren't working, why this employee isn't performing well, but that one is. But if you know your data, you know why this employee isn't performing well and what you can do about it, and why this one is and how to enhance that. So those facts and figures set you free, but you got to get your mindsets and your habits right first. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to have the bandwidth to take care of this other stuff, because it's really nuanced and detail oriented. And it's hard when you're overwhelmed to dive into the details. It just overwhelms you more. You square away your mindsets and your habits, empower your team, and now that data is going to come flooding to you because you're able to handle it. And so I've kind of walked you a little bit through the journey of what I try to take my clients on.
I love it. I love it. I was thinking when you were talking about, the assessment that you make on yourself, that you're really putting what's in your mind onto paper so that you can discern if you are doing the right thing and, if you're on the right track, because there's so much going on here. And it's not just here, it's emotionally as well. And then all those external influences and impulses as well have to stay in check. We absolutely have to do what you just illustrated there for us. Thank you very, very much. And I want to ask you, how should we as entrepreneurs track our lives and our businesses? Is it possible to track your life and your business for that very reason of excelling and identifying the dormant areas and identifying the problematic areas so that you see it for what it is and that you can deal with it? How should entrepreneurs track their lives and their businesses?
Yeah, I would start with, I don't have it up right now because I'm doing this with you, so I don't want to be distracted, but I almost always have a Google spreadsheet up that is just a simple spreadsheet. And on it, I've got my goals. And then another tab has the areas that I focus on, my priorities, and they're color coded. And then there's several other things, my budget and several other things. I'm good. Have that all there so I can reference it throughout the week. But there's obviously the goals, and that's really detailed. And so I don't want to start that subject, but the time tracking is huge. And what I recommend people do is sit down and go, what are my priorities in life and business? What are they? And for me, for example, I've got development, which is more like planning and stuff like that. And then I've got education, I've got coaching, and various other categories. I think there's 7. And they're color coded to fit onto my calendar so that the colors in the Google spreadsheet match the colors on the calendar. And then at the end of the week, I look at how many hours I spent in each of those categories. And I've also designated how many hours I want to spend in each of those categories. So simply what someone can do is choose 5 categories. We'll start with 5 that you want to focus on and make sure you spend intentional time on those categories. And then spend the time, document it on your calendar, and then transfer the number of hours you spent on it into your spreadsheet. And it's not that, it might sound a little complicated because you're not seeing it in front of you, but it really is 5 categories. You create the spreadsheet real quick. And then at the end of the week, you review your week of what happened. And you get to see how you're doing in those particular areas, because you're going, okay, did I spend 4 hours on this particular area? Did I spend this many hours networking? Did I spend this many hours developing myself? And so on and so forth. And it creates intentionality, and that's going to grow you. And when you notice that the area of education, when you or learning or whatever category you call it, is at 30 minutes or 0, and you want to do an hour and a half a week, and you've got a track record of 3 or 4 weeks of that, you're suffering. It's hurting you. You're not achieving that. It's messing you up. And that matters. And so you're gonna feel that maybe a little bit farther down the road, but you can see what's happening. And in real time, you can make an adjustment, right? So at the end of the week, you see it and you're like, oh, wow, this week I did 0 work on education. Uh-oh. Well, next week I better focus on that one a bit more. So that's it's really simple. And everybody has Excel or Google Sheets. So there's no special tool here to use. I would show you, but sorry, go ahead.
It's user friendly, to track it. These apps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Wonderful.
Define and track.
And if you identify areas that you are lacking in or that you haven't given attention to, at least you know how to approach that and how to fill that gap. And you are there to do exactly that, to show people, because, it's very difficult to see things while you are in the situation. It's always good to have someone from the sideline to look into, say, but then you have to obviously be open to it. But you are doing this, you are doing that, maybe change this, maybe swap these 2 things around. What you do carries so much weight. It is really helping people, uplifting them, empowering them. And we need more of that.
Yes. Yep. The more we know what's going, if you know yourself well and you know what's going on with yourself, this really can allow you to do better ministry. This allows you to be more in touch with what God is doing in you, because you're alert, you're aware. I don't think God wanted us to walk around aloof or unaware of ourselves. There's the verse that says, "For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face, or now we know in part, but then face to face will be fully known." Yeah. Let's get closer and closer to that fully known part. God fully knows us already, but we're going to fully know ourselves when we get to heaven. And it's like, let's get closer and closer now, because that is allowing God to fully use our giftings for His purposes. And I'm all about that. And I'm all about that for my business clients as well.
You live it. You don't only teach on it, you live it. Right. You have that experience, and that's what you bring. Now, we are both believers, and I wanted to ask you to share the lessons you've learned as a Christian in the business world. The business world can be very interesting, and you have to be careful, as in, other places as well, but always be careful who you surround yourself with. And, we learn lessons. Just because people are believers when we do business, it doesn't mean that the deal will always go through. What lessons have you learned as a Christian business owner? Because people don't always open it, with open arms, accept it with open arms. Yeah.
I've learned that there's 3 that came to mind. I'm trying to figure out the order to put them in, but I'd say one of the first lessons is there's actually a lot of wisdom in the secular business world that Christians that are running their businesses and people that are just trying to live their lives could adopt. That would be very helpful. All wisdom comes from God. And so it may seem secular, but ultimately it's coming from God. And you could break it down in the principles that are found in the Bible very easily if you really look at them. So I think people sometimes shy away from the wisdom that the business world can bring you. But if you filter it for the intention of how God can use that wisdom, do it. And so I was a little bit resistant. I was a little bit resistant to that at first, but now I've recognized that there is a lot of wisdom there. Number two, there's a lot of wisdom that the business world is missing. Because when you don't bring Jesus into your business, you are missing out on so much insight, wisdom, and empowerment and ministry and so many things. So that's the second thing that I learned, that business owners, not the second thing, but a second thing, that business owners that aren't believers, they really need him. And when you listen to the gurus, that they do share some wisdom, but they get to this edge. I was listening to Brene Brown and some other leader in the business industry. I think it was actually Simon Sinek. And they were talking all highfalutin and like they had the most brilliant answers. And I'm sitting there going, but you're missing Jesus. And to me, it was so obvious, because they were talking about how business doesn't ultimately fulfill. And I'm just watching this video and I'm going, they don't get it. They don't get that business will never fulfill. Wealth will never fulfill, no matter how many widgets you sell or how many people you serve. If you don't do it in the name of Jesus, it's never going to fulfill. And it won't matter for anything either. And this is what people don't understand in the business world that aren't Christian. Thirdly, business should be a ministry. And if you're a believer, if your business is not a ministry, then you're not doing the Great Commission, which is to make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And God is with you as you do that. So we're missing out on God being with us when we don't make our business a ministry, and we're missing out on the calling that he put on every single believer in the world. And when you shift to that, the stress will change, your results will change, your insights will change. And that, when I made that change in July of 2018, I really went, wait a second, I'm not focusing on this like a ministry.
Yeah.
And I did a very practical thing, and I want to encourage your listeners to do the same. Every month, and I know the date because I have it on the top of the sheet, but every Monday at 8 a.m., I meet with the CEO of my business, who's God. He's the one that runs my business, not me. He's the one that makes me get leads and gives me inspiration and ideas, and et cetera. And so every Monday at 8 a.m. from 8 to 8:30, I meet with him and we have a conversation. Sometimes it's prayer, sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's singing, sometimes it's silence.
Yeah.
But doing that has shaped my business much more into a ministry. So now I pray before every client I meet with. I pray for every client, period. And I pray for my business. There's so many things that happen. And now I pray with non-believing clients on an actual call sometimes.
Wow.
Because God is the leader of my business, not me. And so those would be the things that I've noticed as a Christian in the business world. Those would be, I think those are four.
Valid points.
Yeah.
Very, very valid points. I love that. And I'm going to remember that. It's very impactful to realize what you've shared, because it's not easy to be a Christian out there. It's fine if you are in your community and you're in your church because you're with like-minded people. But out there, Kyle, it's difficult, very difficult, but nothing that can't be overcome, of course.
Yep. I agree.
Leadership quotes. I mean, I've met with John Maxwell coaches, and they've got a whole string of quotes. And then sometimes I ask this question, what's your favorite leadership quotes? And then sometimes people don't even know what they know, a lot of quotes, but they haven't sat down to kind of figure out personally what's their favorite. So what is your favorite leadership quote?
So I have a really cheap one, I guess you could say. And It's a productivity quote, and it's not my favorite, but it's the one that comes to mind. And then I want to read a verse if I can find it, but I don't have it down yet. Actually, I'll give you James 5:19 as the second one. But anyway, the first one is by David Allen, and he says, "Your mind is for having thoughts, not keeping them." And his point is that we fill our mind with all kinds of clutter and junk, but our mind is for creativity. Our mind is for solving things. Our mind is for out of the box, amazing ideas. And when we clutter it up with the stress of all kinds of miscellaneous thoughts, it doesn't give us the freedom to do what our brain was designed to do. And so that is one of my favorite quotes. Our mind is for having thoughts, not keeping them. And then the second one is James 5:19, which says, it's about anger. Give me a second, I'll get it.
No, you don't even have to rush. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, my goodness, we should have done our interview so long ago already, because what you are sharing is so valuable. So take your time. I love that. Is it James 5?
It's James 1:19.
1:19. Okay,
yeah, give me the beginning of it, and then I can say the rest, I imagine. I'm actually trying to memorize the first chapter of James, and beautiful. It's been a journey. I'm not good at this.
I love that. No, let me tell you, Kyle, I love it when people know scripture, and you don't just know scripture, you know scripture. You know the meaning of it. It says, "So then, my beloved brethren."
So, I think it's so then, brothers and sisters, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because the anger of man, or the anger of people, does not produce the righteousness that God desires. And in business, this is so much of what we need to do. Be quick to listen, to the market, quick to listen to our employees, quick to listen to our intuition, and most importantly, quick to listen to God. And then slow to speak. Slow to speak means maybe instead of being the one that talks the most in a meeting, you're the one that asks the most questions, right? And then listen, you're quick to listen. And then you're slow to speak because you're busy asking questions and intently listening and watching the body language and the tone of your employees, and really diving in on what are they really saying, right? And then asking them powerful questions and listening to the answers that they give. And slow to become angry. When an employee messes up, or when a friend messes up, or a family member, are we quick to listen to why they messed up and slow to speak our opinion or our solution to them? Or are we more quick to listen, slow down, and not be angry about it, and truly empathize with what's happening with them? Instead of saying, "This pisses me off," we're going, "Wait, what happened here that this was the result?" And you find out. And then all of a sudden, the empathy meter goes way up, because you care about the person and what happened there, instead of being pissed off at a problem. So James 1:19 is very powerful for that. And it does not produce the righteousness that God desires when we're quick to speak, quick to get angry, and slow to listen. The opposite end of the spectrum. So
love that. I was thinking about, I had an interview with Bob Ramsey, and we were also talking quotes, and he's also heavy into leadership like you, and he taught me the following rhyme. He said, "Love many, trust a few, always make sure you row your own canoe."
Nice.
I just love that. I absolutely love that. And later that evening, I did a keynote I was a keynote speaker for a group that Dennis and I belong to. And I actually used it. It wasn't part of my speech in my mind. I didn't put it there, but it just came out. So I love the fact that you shared scripture. I understand the fact that you are relaying this information to us, and you're a very, very good communicator. And that is essential in the type of work that you are. So I want to commend you. Every single question that we've been handling, the way that you bring the point across is relatable, it is knowledgeable, and the heart behind it is positive. I mean, I sat and I listened intently because you create this space where I want to hear and listen what you're saying. So I want to really, I love that. Thank you so much. And it brings me to my next question, because you are out there personally and professionally developing yourself, developing others. Which books are you currently reading for people in the audience? I mean, they are so inspired. I'm sure we are going to get so much good feedback from this session. And I know that you excel and you learn and you scale in your own personal life as well. What are the books that you're currently reading that are shaping you even more?
Yeah, I have a book that, man, this book is really good and I highly recommend people read it. It's called Crucial Accountability. Not Crucial Conversations, but Crucial Accountability. That's a pillar. I like to call it pillar content, because it's something that I'm hanging my hat on when it comes to the way I'm going to lead for the rest of my life. So that's one of them. I'm going to cheat and look at my bookshelf here. Another one would be the 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is, it's all about goal setting. Yeah. Yep. It's about how to set and achieve your goals in a way that actually works, like truly works. And then I'll give you one more. Let's see. What do we got here? Is there an obscure one I could share?
Yes, you may.
Well, I'll give you a leadership book but it's a Christian book. It's called Celebration of Discipline.
Oh, Celebration of Discipline
by Richard Foster. Yeah, those would be the 3 that those 3 books shaped me for sure. I mean, they changed me in the way that I see the world, and the way that I lead, and the way that I lead my family. So those would be the 3, and they're different. They're different subjects.
Yeah.
And the third one is spiritual. It's a pastor that wrote it. The other 2 are purely business, but they translate into life. The other 2 translate into life very easily. So
wonderful. I've made notes here. I'm definitely going to look at these titles and order them online, because I can see how it has shaped you. And that's the thing, when you lead with authenticity like you do, other people see that, because we live in a very plastic world. We live in a superficial world. So these days, and I'm sure you've seen that people are drawn to authentic leaders. They are drawn to people that are vulnerable and, that say what they feel and not keep up this whole facade. So thank you so much for that. I love your authenticity. I love what you are sharing, and you are very knowledgeable. I'm going to repeat that about your topic. And that's why when this session comes out, I want to promote it extensively. And I ask the audience to promote it extensively, because Kyle is really anointed for what he's doing. It's more than just a job. It's more than just a position. You have been anointed by God to do this, and we need to get that message out there. And our time, I mean, how did our time fly? We are down to the last 2 questions. They say time flies when you are having fun.
True. It's so true.
So tell me, Kyle, what's next for you? Do you have upcoming events? Do you want to tell us about your book? Anything that you want to share? How can we serve you? How can we elevate you?
Sure. Yeah. The sharing of the podcast is wonderful. My book is out. If you go to Amazon and look for Sage Leadership and put my first name, Kyle, in there, you'll find it. It's a white and green cover book, and it says Sage Leadership, obviously, on the front. So check that out. You can find me, sagemindset.com. But the thing, it's interesting. God gave me, I guess you could say, a vision, but I'm going to start a men's mentoring program, just like the one I was in before, but I'm going to start it in the Pacific Northwest. And I was trying to figure out how to do that. What does that look like? How do I create the backing for that? And yesterday, actually, a lot of things came together. And I realized that what I really love serving blue collar business owners, people in the trades, they're moving dirt, dumping concrete, building houses, that kind of stuff, because they have such a wonderful opportunity to minister to their employees. Because a lot of the guys that work for them are a little bit rough. Let's be honest, they're chewing, they're smoking, they're drinking, they're doing drugs sometimes. And it's not that those people are bad by any means, but some of them do that. And there's a beautiful opportunity for these guys that are leading them to mentor them and to turn their business into a workplace ministry. And so the idea that God gave me was to start a membership, to start a group of a collection of blue collar business owners that are Christian, that want to run their business as more than just a business and actually do ministry to those that they lead and be a witness in the way that they run their business. And I want to bring them together so they can mastermind together and go, hey, I'm struggling with manpower. I'm struggling to figure out how to get my guys to stick around, or I'm struggling with how to estimate on these certain projects or whatever, and bring those people together so they can collaborate. But I would also provide teaching through the Sage Leadership book. So that's the middle part of the big vision. That I have. So those would be some things that I'd love for support and encouragement, and mostly prayer.
Beautiful. I love that. Now you are definitely in your flow. You are in your motion. You are helping people, also find their pace. I love that. And I'm going to promote it extensively. I really believe in what you do. And I see that you are a wise leader. You have the experience, you have the knowledge, you have the heart. It's what you want to do. It's your passion. And that's why what you say, sometimes, I speak to people and they'll say things and it will be good. It's lovely. And sometimes I'll speak to people such as yourself and they'll say things and it will carry weight. Even though I haven't known you for so long, I can see in you that you know what you're talking about. So when you say something, I understand and I listen. When someone else that I, maybe don't know so much and not that long, and they say something, I'll be like, okay, I'll lock it in the vault. It's fine. I'll revisit. And that's really what I enjoy about you. And the audience, I know the audience is going to feel the same way. So I want to ask you our last question. Do you have any words of wisdom for the audience?
I wrote those down and I can't find the document. So I'm going to have to do it off the cuff. I would say that ask this forward question.
Yeah.
Ask your employees, ask your spouse, ask your friends, what do you think?
Ooh, yeah.
Find out from them what they think. Find out from them what they're intuiting, what they're feeling. And another one you could say is, what do you want? And you got to say it the right way. What do you want? That's a bad way to say it. But if you said, what do you want is a much better way to say that question. But that'd be the second. So what do you think and what do you want? And then the third one is, it's an acronym because I love acronyms. Wait. Ask yourself this acronym. Why am I talking?
I like that. I've never heard of that before. I've got goosebumps now.
I talk too much. I admit it. I need this acronym. I need to ask wait of myself frequently. Why am I talking? Shut up. Let your kid talk. Listen, you asked him what he's thinking, or not he. I don't have a son. What she's thinking. But anyway, what do you think? What do you want? And ask yourself, why am I talking? So.
Absolutely phenomenal interview. It's the first time ever that anyone has given a question like that for that, an answer like that for that question. So I feel refreshed and I feel edified, and I've got new vigor for the things that you're busy with. I'm seeing things in a new light. So I want to thank you for the importation of your wisdom and your knowledge and your understanding. And I really appreciate, I know you're busy. Thank you for making time for the Meticulous Moments podcast. We deeply appreciate you.
Well, it was awesome to be on your show. I really appreciate it as well.
Thank you very much. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, you know what awaits. I'm going to make Kyle's contact information available after this session. Follow him on social media, connect with him, cheer him on this wonderful leadership journey, and of course, always keep him in prayer. And with that, we want to say good night. Have a lovely, lovely evening, and we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.